This conference will now be recorded.
I'm still trying to share the screen, guys. I think some problem with my network. I'll try to do it as I speak. Okay. So today the plan was to go over the checklist in terms of what needs to be there in the system for us to do the hands-on. Right. I wanted to go through quickly over the K6 installation, K6 components, how to validate whether the K6 is installed properly or not, and looking into the VS Code, and then setting up the cloud account for K6, creating a simple script in K6 and executing it. So all these and also the setting up the AppDynamics and connecting with the e-library application. All these things is what I wanted to do it as part of the initial session, right? So, but that will require for me to do a screen share. So I'll try to sort it out as I speak. The second part is at least at 30-40% of you are from a manual testing background, right? Who are new to performance testing. So I wanted to have a session on some of the basics of performance testing, the concepts, why performance testing, what is the typical life cycle of that. Okay, what I will do is please bear with me until I able to share the screen. I'll get started with these concepts. So people who are new to performance testing, who has a background of manual and other testing, please listen carefully. And if you have any questions at any point of time, stop me. And definitely, I would like to this conversation more of a conversation rather than I'm just keep on speaking, right? So if you want to really to be just a dialogue oriented, you can go and get the video recordings alone. But this live sessions are going to be more uh, it is going to be more effective when there are going to be questions and discussions, right? So feel free to discuss, feel free to be, don't hesitate, don't think that somebody else will think something about you. When we are here to learn, right? We are not experts, we are here to learn. So feel free to ask any question. Don't think this question is very vague or not relevant. Whatever question you're going to ask, you're going to get some knowledge out of it. So don't ever feel inferior, or don't have any hesitancy in asking questions. Okay. um, Fine. So when it comes to testing, right, there are two broader categories: functional and non-functional, right? So functional testing is more towards validating your functionality of your application, right? You do a login, you provide your user ID and password, whether your authentication is going through, whether you're getting a home page or not, is the functional validation that you do, right? If you give wrong password, of course it should not take you to the home page. So validating each and every functionality is the scope of your functional testing. When it comes to non-functional, anything other than functional is going to be your non-functional, right? Examples are uh, same thing. I do a login. How fast my login is going to respond? How fast my home page is going to, when I click submit after giving user ID and password, how fast my home page is going to rendered? When I do a search, how fast the search response is going to come? When I'm going to do a add to cart, how fast the product is getting added to the cart? All these things are going to be part of your uh, performance testing, right? And next, another part of your non-functional testing is going to be your security testing, right? How secured is your authentication is going to be? When I do when I give a user ID and password, we are giving our sensitive data, right? Your user ID and password is very sensitive to our individual. So when we send it over the network, how confident we are whether the user ID and password will not be trapped by other users, right? Somebody man in the middle somebody who are trying to hack, our ID and password should not go into them, right? So how secure your application is, validating how secure your application is going to be your security testing. Similarly, you will have accessibility testing, usability testing, compatibility, all are part of your non-functional. Okay, so both functional and non-functional all pretty much important to make sure that your end users are happy to use your application. Um, that's why we any organization, any project, you will have both these things. Okay, and in non-functional testing, both your performance and security are very niche, very critical, very niche, when compared to, it's not that a functional testing is not important like that, but because of the importance of your customer experience, and then the little bit of complexity around doing a performance testing and security testing, these are all very niche. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, ma'am. There's a question. You have any question, ma'am? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's me. I wanted to ask is, I do understand, I remember that you said functional part of testing is very minimum in K6 tool. So all the non-functional testing which you have mentioned or listed just now are covered under K6 tool, or even they are limited?
So it's not about limited. See, the performance when it comes to tools, right? When you say functional testing or automation functional testing, you will have Selenium, you have Cypress, you have these kind of a tools, right? Similarly, the tools are going to be very unique, specific to the each testing category. For performance, you will have LoadRunner, Jmeter, K6, which will do only your performance testing. Of course, with Jmeter, you can also do a little bit of functional, but by nature, it is a performance testing tool. Okay. When it comes to security, again, you will have the tools like Bobsuit, you will have Fortify, you will have HCL AppScan. So there are always going to be um, tools which are going to be very much focused doing only one aspect of testing. So LoadRunner or K6 or Jmeter cannot be used for any other testing. It's only performance testing. Same way with Selenium or Cypress, they are only for functional automation.
Understood.
Yeah, because it's like arts first courses, right? You cannot mix and match, because performance testing, the nature of that is you should be able to concurrently load 100,000 users, and then you would be able to mimic that kind of a scenario. Whereas automation is going to be just 1, 2, 3, 4 users, but it is more of a UI level automation. When it comes to security, it is more about validating the traffic, modifying the traffic, and then understanding how the application behaves. So the nature of testing is different. So the tool is also going to be different for each of this category. Yeah. So coming back to the non-functional testing, though you have all these performance, security, accessibility, and compatibility, performance and security is going to be is still very niche. And when it specifically coming to performance testing, um, it is it again, this very broader area, right? You will have testing, you will have engineering, you will have monitoring. Again, there is a lot of things to learn. Right, so a career of a performance engineer will start with as a performance tester, and where you will be mainly focusing on scripting, execution, reporting, and from there you will expand your knowledge to monitoring, and then to your engineering, like Prithvi asked earlier, right, about from an engineering perspective, analyzing your system resources, optimization, tuning, all these things will come into picture. Okay, so why performance testing is required? As I was telling, your response time is very, very important. Number one, as a user, when we go to any travel site, when you go to any e-commerce site, right? If application is going to take more than 10 seconds, 15 seconds, we will not have in that patience to there in that particular website, right? We will just move to another website. So the response time is very, very critical, and that is one aspect why performance testing is required. Without testing, without performance testing, if you are going to give the application to production, right, and if the end users feels that your application is slow or your page is not coming up fast, then you will lose business, right? Your customer is going to lose your your when I say customers, right, organization is going to lose their customer, right? Like Amazon or Flipkart, if we take an example, if you open a Flipkart and if the page is loading very slow, you will move to other sites like Amazon or eBay, right? We don't want to stay in Flipkart because wherever we get discounted price, wherever the application is very fast, will move on. So to make sure that your end users are happy, to make sure that your end user have a very good experience when they use the application, your performance testing is very, very required, right? So that is number one from a response time perspective. Second, behind the scene, right? You as an end user, we only know Amazon.com as a website, right? But behind the scene, there is going to be n number of servers. Okay, 10, 20 application servers, five or more database server, middleware. So it is going to be a multiple components, multiple server running in the background, right? Your application architecture, if you see, it will have your application app server, you will have a DB server, you will have a middleware, you will have a MQ, you will have a Kafka. It can be many layers behind the scene, right? And every layer will have a multiple VMs. It can be Linux box, it can be a Windows. There will be multiple servers, and each will have a CPU, memory, thread. All these things are going to be part of these components, right? Even if you take a laptop of yours, it will have a 8 GB RAM, right? And then say 4 core or 8 core. And if you open multiple applications in your machine, right, it is going to get slow down, right? The performance of the laptop will going to come down. So another important aspect of doing a performance testing is to validate if your backend components, all your server components, can able to withstand the load. When you do a performance testing with 100 users or 500 users, one is to measure the response time. The goal is to measure the response time of your from one page to another page. Second is to make sure that your system resources, your backend servers, are performing at a proper resource consumption. Like your CPU should be less than 60%, your memory should be less than 80%, your thread should be less than 70%, right? To measure and make sure that all the servers are running at a optimal consumption is the second goal. So performance testing is required to validate your response time, to validate your system resources. So both are equally important, right? If your response time is good, but your all the servers are running on a very high CPU or high memory, it can get crashed at any moment. If a server is going to get crashed, then your application is not going to be available, right? So it is very equally important to validate both your response time and your system resources. Okay, so that is where two types of tool will come into picture. One is your load testing tool, like your Jmeter, your LoadRunner, your K6, where you will create the script and then execute it, and then you will be able to go and look into the response time of your login, search, add to cart, everything using these tools. And then to monitor your servers, right? Your Java application server or a DB server, you need a monitoring tool. And that is where tool like AppDynamics, Dynatrace will come into picture to monitor your missions, to monitor your application, to monitor your database. There will be you will be using a tool like AppDynamics or Dynatrace. So both are equally important, right? So in this K6 course, you will learn lot from a tool perspective, from a testing tool perspective, and also you will learn a little bit of the APM concepts, APM tool, how you will use AppDynamics to monitor these system resources, application level monitoring, heap, GC, all the important metrics also you will be learning. There's a question from Lakshmi. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, Satish. Are they also open source tools like K6?
From a monitoring perspective, um, there are open source tools like if you want to monitor your infra, right? So if I split this into your backend into couple of layers, you will have a mission. For example, you will have a laptop. In this laptop, you will have your Tomcat. In the Tomcat, you will be running your Java application, which means I have to monitor my laptop because laptop is the underlying host, and I have to also monitor my Java application, right? So to monitor my infra, there are a lot of open source tools available like Telegraph, Inflex, Grafana. These combination of tools is an open source tool. You can use it to monitor your infra. When it comes to your Java monitoring, right? You will have a tool like JConsole, which is part of your Java directory. To monitor your heap, monitor your thread, you can use tools like JConsole. But to do a diagnostics, why my response time is slow? Why my what is my garbage collection pattern? How many major GCS happened? How many minor GCS happened? And to look into all my database query response time. To do all these detailed monitoring, diagnostics, and root cause analysis, you would need a APM tool like AppDynamics or Dynatrace, which is not a open source. Those are all commercial tool, and from a learning perspective, you will get a trial account for 30 days, 45 days, you will get it. But for your project use, it's going to be a commercial. So from a diagnostic perspective, the tools are going to be commercial. But from an infra level monitoring, yes, there are good level of tools like Telegraph, InfluxDB, Grafana are available, which you can make use of.
But Grafana in itself is a trial account only, right? So after 2 weeks,
No, no,
the
no, no, no.
account is getting expired for
No,
doing the
no, no,
performance
no.
testing.
See, there are two things.
Mm,
One, Grafana has multiple tools in it. Okay,
Tools.
K6 is part of Grafana, and in K6 there are two parts. One, you can use K6 as a standalone, which is open source. If you wanted to use K6 Cloud for your execution and reporting monitoring, that you need to subscribe and pay to Grafana. But for first initial 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even for a month, no, I think for running a 50 user test, it is still free only. In Grafana, you can still run 50 user test. There is no time limit. But for your actual project usage, you have to subscribe to Grafana. But you can, without using Grafana itself, you can do everything in your local itself. Okay. And then when it comes to monitoring your infra, right? Grafana always has two options. One is the open source, one is their cloud. If you are going to use their cloud environment, you have to pay. But if you're going to install Grafana in your mission, it is free. My Grafana is running in my mission for last 5 years. Okay, for monitoring my infra. So Grafana on-prem is still a open source, man.
Okay, because I subscribed. I mean, I registered 2 weeks back when I got your recordings, but that
Mm,
got
mm, mm.
expired eventually. And when I tried to log in, it is not allowing me to log in, telling that my subscription has ended. So that's the reason I asked this
For
question.
K6 you're saying,
K6
is it?
app.k6.io for logging into that.
Okay. App.k6.io. I think it got moved into Grafana itself, right? I don't think you will be
Yes.
able to execute. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the recording, whatever you got, I think I think from a cloud perspective alone, it is little outdated because
Yes.
last 6 months or 8 months back, they have entirely moved it to Grafana. So the same thing, I mean, they just moved it to Grafana, but all the UI, the features are same. You will do the same thing in Grafana itself. I'll show you that everything in the upcoming classes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So coming back again, others who don't have a background on performance testing, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate at all, and feel free to ask question. Even if you think that it is very basic, don't even hesitate. Okay. And people who have joined in the last few minutes, I'm not sharing my screen. There's some problem with my network because of the rain. My network is very slow. I'm using my mobile network, so that's why I'm just going through the concepts, and just an audio. I couldn't able to share the screen for today. Okay. Um, so from a why performance testing, I was explaining you, right. One is to more from a response time. You have to validate your response time and then validate your system resources. So for validating the response time, you need testing tool like Jmeter, K6, LoadRunner, are the tools which are required for you to do the scripting, execution, and getting these response time as part of the analysis. And from monitoring the backend system resources, you need tools like AppDynamics or Dynatrace. Okay. So when it comes to tool, right? When it comes to performance testing tool, okay. Some of you are working in LoadRunner, some of you working in Jmeter, and some of you might not be working in any. I've not worked in any of the tool, but for you all, the from a concept perspective, right? Irrespective of any tools, what you're going to do in a testing tool is you're going to script your business flow. When I say script your business flow, we'll take an example of Amazon itself. Okay, in Amazon, you have a login, you go and search for a product, or you go and click a category and you select a product, and then you go and add it to a cart, and then you apply some discounts, and then you go to a checkout and you place an order, or you go and check your order history, or you go and keep searching, keep searching. So that's a typical navigation what we do, right? So all these are all a business flow. Okay. In production in amazon.com, if you see in morning 9 a.m. to 6 p.m, there will be many people, thousands of people who will be logging into amazon.com doing this activity, right? So if I want to test amazon.com, first thing is I have to simulate that this user action, right? I have to create a script which will do these actions, which will log in, which will do a search, which will do a add to cart, make a payment, and then placing order. I have to mimic these business flow. It can be a business flow, or in terms of if it is a microservices API based application, my script should have all the get calls, all the post call, all the put call, all these things should be part of the script. The script is nothing but a set of actions. Either it's a UI based navigation or a individual API calls, right? So any tool, you're going to have a component where you can go and create scripts. Okay. And in any script, you're going to have these enhancements that you have to do it, right? You either record or create these API calls in the script. Okay. And then there is going to be concept like parameterization, correlation, error handling. You when you're going to run the script which you've created, you're not going to run this for one user, right? You're going to run it for 100, 200, 300. So which means you cannot go with only one data or two data, right? I cannot always go and search for laptop. I cannot always go and log in with satish.j@isha.com, right? So every time when I'm going to run it with multiple users, every user has to have its own email ID. And people should search with laptop or a mobile or a fan or a air conditioner or a TV or a mobile or a laptop or a whatever it is. So the input has to be um, different for different users. So you have to make that input as a parameter or as a variable, right? So that is where parameterization is going to come into picture. And there is going to be something called correlation, right? There are going to be dynamic response from the server. When you record it, when you create a script, you might be having some hard coded token IDs, your session tokens, your OAuth tokens. So there are going to be multiple such response which you have to make it dynamic. So that is where correlation is going to come into the picture. And you have to validate your response, whether you're getting a right response or not. That is where your validation is going to come into picture. Error handling. All these things are going to be common irrespective of the tools. Okay. So that is why it is easy to go from one tool to another tool. You're always going to find it easy because you're not going to learn concepts. You're just going to learn how to do this in that tool, right? So scripting is going to be common wherever, whichever tool you're going to use it. Only that in LoadRunner you will have Vugen. In Jmeter you will have a Jmeter GUI where you go and create these scripts. In K6 we'll be using Visual Code kind of an IDE for scripting. That's how it is going to be different from one tool to another tool. Okay, so scripting is going to be part of your, it's going to be first activity when it comes to your performance testing. In fact, before even do a scripting, there's something called non-functional requirement. You will have test planning. So requirement and test planning is going to be part of any project, right? Be it as a manual testing or development, the requirement and planning is going to be there everywhere, right? So non-functional requirement and then this workload analysis, I'll probably teach little later. I don't want to go into more very theoretical stuff now itself. I'll teach you what is non-functional requirement, how to gather these requirement from your business team or from the tool like your real user monitoring tools. I'll teach you later. Okay, but when you look into the activity of a performance tester or a performance testing team, you will have non-functional requirements followed by your test strategy or test planning, and then comes your scripting. Okay, so once your scripting is completed using any of the tool that I have told, then it's going to be your execution, right? So you have to create scenarios. Scenario is nothing but I have scripts, which is going to be a login, registration, add to cart, place order, order history. All these things are going to be your scripts, right? Then I have to go and configure how many user I have to run it for these scripts. What is the duration of that? There is something called ramp up, ramp down. All these things are going to be configured, which we call it as a scenario, right? It could be load testing scenario, it could be test testing, it could be spike testing. There are multiple scenarios. Using K6, we'll also try to see how to create these various scenarios. There are concepts like executor available in K6. We'll learn applying this ramp up pattern, ramp down pattern. So there are a lot of variant available in K6 for controlling these kind of scenarios. Okay, scenario is nothing but how long I want to run, how many users I wanted to run, and then how do I want to control my ramp up and ramp down. All these things are going to be part of your scenario, right? So you execute those script for these kind of these configuration, and then while you do an execution, you have to monitor your response time, monitor your errors, monitor your system resources, CPU, memory. All these are going to be part of your monitoring. And then once test is completed, you will go and collate the results. You will look into the report coming out of K6 or a Jmeter, and then you prepare a detailed report. Okay, so from a life cycle of performance testing, you will have a non-functional requirement, you will have a test planning and test strategy, and then you will have a scripting, execution, monitoring, and reporting. Okay, any tool you take it, this is not going to change at all, right? So from a K6 perspective, we will, as I said earlier, we will go and create scripts against some of the microservice project, some of the UI based applications. We will learn how to do a parameterization. We will learn how to do a correlation, how to and error and do how to do the error handling, how to validate your scripts are working fine or not, debugging the scripts, executing it, creating various scenarios, various ramp up patterns, various load pattern, executing it, monitoring it using AppDynamics, and preparing the report. All these things we will see one by one from tomorrow. Okay. I'll pass it here. Unfortunately, my network is not it up. I'm still using my mobile, so I couldn't able to share the screen. It's very slow, is what it is saying. Okay, so I'll pass it here. Okay, unfortunately, I couldn't able to start those checklist of K6 components. We'll do it tomorrow for sure. Okay, I'll pass it here. Anybody have any questions? Arun, whatever I have told in the last 30 minutes around this topic or in general, don't hesitate. Put it in the chat or unmute and ask question.
It might sound silly, but just have a question. If we are trying to test any of the APIs which connects to database, do we have the scripts connecting to database as well using K6 tool?
See, if your scope of testing is on API, you will hit the API, and the API in turn will go and connect to a DB, right? But if you wanted to go and test your database itself, right? Then say, for example, if your API is hitting your MySQL DB, and it is going to use your JDBC protocol, for example, right? Then you have to, what you are asking is whether it is possible to test your DB calls directly, right? All your queries directly, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, okay, directly it is not possible, but indirectly there's a lot of libraries, plugins available through which you would be able to communicate. But you might have to write some code, because here you're trying to mimic what API is going to do it. In an API code, say it's a Java code, right? Inside the Java code, they would have created a connection to JDBC. They would have added all those select query or update query or insert query. So you need to get all these stored procedures or your DB calls. You have to replicate that in your K6 script, and you should also have those connection libraries, your JDBC related libraries, and then you would be able to execute it. Technically, 100% possible to do it using K6, but it is going to be a little complex. You may have to spend time. You might need to write some code in JavaScript, but it is 100% possible. But we don't really do it, because if you look into any application, right, your database is not going to get exposed directly. It is always going to get exposed using an API or an UI. So in any performance testing project, we go and hit your UI or hit your API and test it. But there are also instances where earlier, for a thick client, right, a lot of thick clients, they do it directly, they interact with your DBs. So in those cases, we have JDBC protocols in LoadRunner, where you can go and write queries. You can also use Java protocol in LoadRunner to go and create those queries and execute it. Similarly, it is possible, but is it required or not? It's the first question. Second, you might have to spend time in creating those kind of a JavaScript code in K6, but it is possible.
Understood. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, to you, I think from a GraphQL perspective, it is again going to be an HTTP only, but it is not directly possible to run it through K6. But there are going to be libraries available which you have to import, and then you would be able to still hit those GraphQL APIs from K6. It is possible, But as I said earlier, I'll get you those information later.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Sure, sure. Anyone from manual testing background, automation testing background in the call? You have any basic question, guys? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer.
Hi, Ashish here this time. So as you said that so using by some other APIs or we can able to use it. Okay. So do we have any reference document which we can refer it for that specifically for the K6 to ramp up our skill set?
Um, can you rephrase the question, sir? I
Yeah.
couldn't
So
able to understand.
just I wanted to say that this is the first training which we are going for that K6. Okay. So do we have any documents or any reference website that where we can go through that? So good kind of materials where we can go through that the K6 and understand more about that tools.
Okay. Sure. I can send you the blog URLs. I can send you some of the documentation available within K6 itself for your learning. But are you working in performance testing projects, sir, or you're from functional testing
I
background?
I am working on the automation playwright and
Okay.
Selenium.
Okay. Great. Okay. So yeah, definitely I will be able to share it. Right. So along with this training, you can also refer to the other documentation, but the other documentation might be a little bit heavy for now to get started with. But
Yeah.
once you are in the middle of the training, then those documentation will make a lot of sense. You'll be able to understand it a lot. I will share it those blogs and URLs which you can use it for your additional knowledge, sir. I'll share it.
Okay, that will be great help. Thank you.
Sure, definitely. Anyone else, guys? Anybody from functional test background? If you guys have any basic questions, please ask.
Yeah. So earlier you talked about this app called as a Dynatrace and something similar to it. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
can you give an example so that you can explain, like, because I do not know about the thing. So, how that Dynatrace is used with the K6, what it actually does.
Okay. See, I think sometime back, right? I think 10-15 minutes back, I was telling you there are two things to do, two aspect of why we need performance testing, right? One is to measure your response time, and another is to make sure your backend components are doing good in terms of resource consumption. Correct. So if you take an example of Amazon.com, as an end user, you log into Amazon.com, go into login, go to a search. Your from page to page, your response time has to be good. It should be within 3 seconds or 5 seconds, right? So to validate this, you need a testing tool like Jmeter or K6 or LoadRunner, where you will go and create scripts, and then you will go and execute it, and then you will go and look into the report to know what is the response time of each of these pages, how many pages you have navigated, what is the response time, what is if there is any error, what is the error percentage. All these things you will measure using this tool like K6. And begin the scene, Amazon is going to have a web server, it is going to have an application server, it is going to have a DB server, it is going to have a middleware components. There are going to be multiple Linux machines, Windows machines, in which your Java or a Python application is going to be deployed, right? So I need to also go and look into those servers to measure, to see what is my CPU, what is my memory, what is my thread, uh, what is my E percentage, what is my garbage collection percentage. So all these system resources, application level monitoring has to be done. So to monitor those, the infrastructure and the application resources, I need tools like AppDynamics or Dynatrace.
Okay.
Yeah, and also say if you say that your login is taking 7 seconds, why it is taking 7 seconds? To do that analysis, to do the diagnostics, again you will be doing it in the AppDynamics or in Dynatrace. So AppDynamics Dynatrace is a monitoring and diagnostic tool.
Okay. So it means like
Okay.
from K6 we can get the metrics, I think, right?
Correct.
Or
So in the case 6, what you will do is you'll create a script for Amazon.com and you'll be executing it, right? So in case 6, you will be getting the, okay, I have tested login for 100 times, response time is 3 seconds. I have tested search functionality for 1000 times, response time is 2 seconds. All this report will be available in case 6. When I'm putting a load from case 6, the traffic is going to go and hit your Amazon server only, right? So to monitor the Amazon service, I will use AppDynamics and Dynatrace. AppDynamics and Dynatrace will keep monitoring all your backend components, all your servers. So I will execute the load from K6, and then the load will go into your Amazon backend service. AppDynamics or Dynatrace will monitor that service. Okay, so tomorrow probably I'll show you how this AppDynamics is going to look like. What all metrics you'll be able to get it. When you go and look into that, you will get more insight on that. But to answer your question, at eye level, your K6 is a testing tool. AppDynamics is a monitoring tool. So you create load, execute load from K6, and then you will monitor the CPU memory. You will be able to do a diagnostic of why response time is high. All these things you'll be doing it from AppDynamics or Dynatrace.
okay.
Yeah, I know since you're probably new to this, it might not be 100% clear for you. But as you learn, as you get into the sessions, you will be able to understand it a little bit very easily, and also you will be able to get answers for all your questions as you get into the next sessions. Ashish. Okay, don't even if you're confused or if you're not able to understand it, don't worry. Once we get into the hands-on, once we get into the practical sessions, you'll be able to easily understand all these whatever I'm explaining to you.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, hi Satish.
Yeah, go ahead, go
Satish,
ahead.
can K6 be used as for web page test load? I mean to say the web page performance,
Oh, okay, the
like
client
for
side performance,
getting,
right?
yeah, for getting something like the time to first byte, the FCPs, the data
Yes,
and all.
yes, yes. See, there are two things when you talk about the client side performance. Okay, from a capability perspective, yes, in K6 you would be able to measure the client side performance as well, right? Like time to first paint, your time to first byte. So these metrics you will be able to measure it. Similar to LoadRunner True Client, you will also be able to create UI level scripts and then get these client side metrics as well. It is possible. That is also a part of the course, and you will learn it. And number two is we are not going to put a load on the UI scripts. Okay, UI scripts are always going to be one user or two user. We will typically create a load testing scripts which will you will be running it for 100 users or 200 users. And UI based script, you will always be executing it for one or two or three. Under load, you will measure the UI level performance as well. So it is possible, like to a true client, you will also be able to create scripts for UI navigation, and you'll be able to execute it and get the client side metrics. It is absolutely possible.
Okay. And does it give any report like the lighthouse and all?
It you might not get a detailed recommendation like Lighthouse, but yes, you will
Mm-hmm.
get a report for these metrics, right? There are 5 6 metrics that is going to be available from a client side perspective. So you will get a report, but it won't be comprehensive like a Lighthouse where you get all this recommendation. So that is not even with the LoadRunner True Client, right? You will not get the
Mm-hmm.
recommendation and all. You will get only metrics. Similarly, in K6 also, you'll get response time and few other metric as part of the report, but not the recommendation.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Satish.
Yeah. Okay. Any others? Any questions? Feel free to discuss. Just think that your colleagues are there, and we're just going to have an open discussion. End of the day, you're going to gain knowledge. Nobody knows other people, right? So no, don't think that somebody will is going to judge you. So don't worry. Ask any questions. We are here to gain knowledge. So don't hesitate at all. Okay, fine, guys. So if there is no question, I'll stop it here. Okay, again, apologize. I couldn't able to share the screen and go with the actual plan. But hopefully tomorrow will not have this problem. Okay. If you have any questions again offline, if with respect to whether it is relevant or not for you to learn this course, if you have those kind of a questions, talk to me tomorrow in the daytime. Mutually, whenever we both are available, we can discuss. If you have any questions around the payment or registration, reach out to the WhatsApp group admins or Kumar sir. Okay, I'll stop it here, guys. I'll stay for another couple of minutes. If you guys wanted to stay, ask question, do it. Otherwise, we'll meet tomorrow at the same time.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Satish.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for your
Thank you.
inputs. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Satish.
yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish.
Yeah, see you tomorrow then.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you, Satish.
Yeah, fine, guys. Thank you.